Sophie Cunningham just set the WNBA on fire. Headlines are screaming that she's been fired after exposing the league's secret fines. But is it really true, or just another rumor twisted into chaos? The truth is, Sophie Cunningham hasn't been fired at all. What really happened is that she's been fined again and again for refusing to keep quiet about what she sees as unfair officiating and league double standards. The WNBA has slapped her with multiple penalties in just a matter of weeks. A $500 fine for mocking referees on TikTok, another $1,500 for comments she made on a podcast, and yet another fine after she called out officiating she believed was favoring Paige Bueckers. Each time, Sophie stood her ground, refusing to back down and openly mocking the league's attempts to silence her. But here's where things get interesting. While the official record shows nothing about her being released from the team, the bold headline screaming, "Fired thrive online" because they sound dramatic. They grab clicks, they get people talking. And in today's sports world, the line between what's factual and what's sensational has never been thinner. Still, if Sophie's not out of the league, why is this story exploding the way it is? The answer lies in the growing list of fines she's racked up, the way she's clapped back at them, and how that has put her at odds with the WNBA itself. And what happened next would shock everyone. The tension really started building when Sophie Cunningham turned into one of the league's loudest critics of officiating. Her first clash came in the form of a TikTok video, just a short clip poking fun at the refs, but enough for the WNBA to hit her with a $500 fine. Most players would have quietly paid it and moved on. Not Sophie. Instead, she laughed it off, clapped back on social media, and doubled down on the idea that the league was punishing players for speaking the truth. That wasn't the end of it. A few weeks later, on her podcast, Sophie took things even further, saying exactly what fans had been whispering for months, that the officiating was inconsistent, and sometimes it looked like certain stars were getting favorable calls. For that, she was fined again, this time $1,500. Once again, Sophie didn't apologize. She called the fine ridiculous, hinted that the league was trying to silence her, and kept right on talking. And then came the final straw, or at least the one that pushed the rumor mill into overdrive. Sophie openly suggested that referees were leaning in favor of Paige Bueckers, the rising superstar who had just entered the league. The WNBA wasted no time slapping her with another fine, making it her third penalty in a matter of weeks. By then, fans were split. Some saw her as a hero standing up against a rigged system, while others painted her as reckless, bringing unnecessary drama to a league trying to grow its audience. But here's the twist. While the fines are real, the firing isn't none. That's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Because as the punishment stacked up, the internet took that detail and ran wild with it. And what started as a fine turned into a viral rumor that Sophie Cunningham had been fired for exposing secret WNBA fines. But that wasn't the whole story. Here's where the truth and the headlines split paths. Sophie Cunningham has not been fired by the WNBA or the Indiana Fever. What's on record are the fines public, documented, and enforced by the league. But in today's media climate, reality doesn't spread as fast as speculation. The spark came from YouTube titles and blog posts designed to shock. Instead of saying Sophie Cunningham fined again, creators wrote Sophie Cunningham fired after exposing fines. And fans clicked. They shared, they debated. Soon enough, a rumor that started as exaggeration had grown into breaking news on social media. And here's the irony. The fines themselves were real, but the fired part never existed. There's no press release, no statement from the Fever, no WNBA announcement. Yet, because Sophie herself leaned into the drama, mocking the league, reposting memes, and laughing off her punishments, fans felt like maybe, just maybe, the story could be true. In other words, she didn't just get fined. She became part of a narrative where silence and exaggeration did the rest of the work. Sophie Cunningham has never been the type to blend into the background. On the court, she's earned a reputation as one of the WNBA's toughest enforcers. With a black belt in Taekwondo and a fearless playing style, she's known for being Caitlin Clark's protector, the teammate who isn't afraid to throw her body around or get physical when opponents target Indiana's rookie star. To Fever fans, that makes her a hero. To rival fan bases, it makes her a villain. The debate exploded after a heated clash with JC Sheldon when Sophie's physical foul led to an online petition calling for her suspension or even permanent removal from the league. Critics said she crossed the line into dirty play. Supporters argued she was doing her job, standing up for her team's most valuable player. The petition gained traction, but so did the defense. Thousands of fans rallied around her, insisting that Cunningham was being singled out simply for playing with an edge. That edge has become her identity. For some, Sophie is a fearless truth-teller, the one player bold enough to call out what others only whisper about biased officiating, selective punishments, and a league that doesn't like being challenged. For others, she's reckless, constantly dragging her team into drama, with fines, fouls, and headlines that overshadow the game itself. And this is exactly why the fired rumor stuck. Because Sophie already lived at the center of controversy. Every foul, every quote, every TikTok post added to her polarizing image. So, when the fines piled up and a few outlets shouted, "Fired," plenty of people were ready to believe it, whether it was true or not. But this story isn't just about Sophie. It reveals something much bigger about the WNBA itself, how the league handles dissent, criticism, and the players who refuse to be silent. And that's where things get really interesting. At first glance, Sophie Cunningham's saga looks like the story of one outspoken player clashing with the league. But underneath, it exposes a bigger tension that the WNBA has wrestled with for years. How much freedom do players really have to speak their minds? The fines against Sophie aren't just about money. They're a message. The league is telling its athletes criticize the referees, mock the system, or call out bias, and there will be consequences. But that message cuts both ways. For some fans, it feels like accountability, keeping order in a league, trying to grow its reputation. For others, it feels like censorship, punishing players for being honest about flaws that everyone can see, and that's where Sophie's role becomes symbolic. She isn't just another fine player, she's the one who refuses to back down. She claps back at the league on social media. She mocks the fines instead of apologizing. She pushes the conversation forward by daring to say what others won't dot. That defiance has turned her into both a lightning rod and a rallying cry. The WNBA has big ambitions, rising ratings, new stars like Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers, and more visibility than ever before. But growth brings scrutiny, and scrutiny brings pressure. Every time a story like this explodes, it forces the league to ask, do we want to be strict enforcers of order, or do we want to let our stars be unfiltered personalities? Because right now, the Sophie Cunningham saga shows what happens when the league tries to do both, and that brings us to the heart of the matter. Sophie hasn't been fired, but the controversy around her has revealed cracks in the system, cracks that could define how the WNBA handles its future. The question is no longer just about Sophie. It's about what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. But that wasn't the end of the story, because Sophie's fight against fines raised a bigger issue that fans and analysts couldn't ignore. When you zoom out, Sophie Cunningham's situation isn't just about fines or rumors of being fired, it's about power. The WNBA is finally getting more eyes, more sponsorships, and more buzz than ever before. But with that spotlight comes the question, who controls the narrative? Is it the league office, protecting its image, or the players, speaking their truth no matter the cost? Sophie represents the messy side of that battle. She's polarizing, unpredictable, and loud, but she's also authentic. Fans may disagree on whether she's reckless or righteous, but they can't deny she sparks conversation. And that's exactly why the rumor about her being fired spread so quickly. In many ways, Sophie became a test case. Can the WNBA handle outspoken stars in the same way the NBA embraces personalities like Draymond Green or Patrick Beverley? Or will it continue to clamp down on players who refuse to toe the line? The answer to that question could shape how the league grows in this new era. When players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Paige Buchers bring a tidal wave of attention. At the end of the day, Sophie Cunningham wasn't fired. But her battle with fines and the narrative spun around her reveals something deeper, that the WNBA is still figuring out how to balance professionalism with personality, discipline with authenticity. And if the league gets that balance wrong, stories like Sophie's won't just be rumors, they'll be warnings. So here's where we land. Sophie Cunningham never lost her job, but she lit a fire under the WNBA that can't be ignored. The fines are real, the controversies are real, but the firing story, that was just another viral twist exaggerated into a headline. Still, it stuck because it tapped into something bigger, the tension between a league protecting its brand and players demanding the right to be themselves. For Sophie, this might just be another chapter in a career built on playing with fire. For the WNBA, it's a spotlight moment, a reminder that silencing voices doesn't silence the conversation, it only makes it louder. And for fans, it leaves a question hanging in the air. In a league that's finally gaining the recognition it deserves, will the players be allowed to shape the story, or will the story always be shaped for them? Because if Sophie Cunningham's journey proves anything, it's this. Sometimes the fines don't silence you. Sometimes they make your voice impossible to ignore.